tobacco, and therefore nicotine. Actually great for you. Nicotine is not at all a problem. Tobacco is a very, very, very natural plant. Where this gets mixed up, cigarettes obviously, right? They get all the rap, all the credit for nicotine. Cigarettes obviously have loads of carcinogens in them. They've done studies on this, most notably the one 2015 with Harvard, where they discovered, I think there's over 47 different carcinogens in cigarettes. Obviously, they're bad. Everyone knows that. That's unquestionable. But where they get mixed up is cigars, which are actually inherently good. We have nicotinoid receptors in our brains that are connected to everything. And the reason why it's called a nicotinoid receptor, I'm sure a lot of people may know this, but just to refresh it for those that don't, it's because it binds, has the highest affinity for binding to nicotine, has the highest affinity for binding to those receptors. So therefore, they're called nicotinoid receptors. Well, what most recently happened in the big V with the big C was the big V's were attacking the nicotinoid receptors, and most people don't have nicotine in their diet, so their nicotinoid receptors were being taken over by these compounds that were in the big V. And what we have found is that the smokers, these people who even smoke cigarettes during this huge 2020 2021, they were the least likely to end up in the hospital or to end up on the respirators, the ventilators, while all this happened. These guys, they touted the big C as being this problem for the lungs, and yet the people that should have the worst lungs had almost relatively, it was like what, 97 to 99%, were problem free in this regard, and they should have had the biggest problem with it. Well, shocker, their nicotinoid receptors were still being bound by this nicotine that they've been receiving, unfortunately by cigarettes. But that is, it's pretty crazy that was how they were able to stay safe through the epidemic that happened, right? Epidemic. But cigars, very interesting as well. They're associated poorly, right? But let's think about other associations that cigars have. They're associated with men, like a manly thing to do. I think it also has other benefits that you sit back and you kind of relax a little bit more. You appreciate more whenever you're smoking a cigar versus when you're appreciating a cigar. And that's something small enough to even lower your blood pressure right there. But it is kind of strange that some of the oldest men in the world smoke cigars to this day, and they should have problems, except that they don't, because there's no problems with cigars. And if you look into other cultures, you look into the Indians, the Native American Indians, right? The indigenous Indians, whatever, just bullshit term that they're given now, whatever. And even Vedic Indians, the Indians out in the East, or the East is termed, whatever. They're very old men, and they're all smoking cigars. They smoke the peace pipes. It's very common in their culture to smoke peace pipe, or just pipes. And when they're smoking tobacco, it's a very good herb, and there's a reason why there's so many depictions of them smoking it, and older men smoking it. What I don't understand is why it is only a masculine thing. I feel like it shouldn't be just for men or a masculine considered thing. I don't know why women can't do it. I strongly object against women smoking cigarettes. I think that's disgusting and smells horrible, looks disgusting, everything. I don't know how. I wouldn't say I have anything against a woman smoking a cigar, but it's just not something that is regularly seen, or that just doesn't really happen. And they need nicotine just as much as we do. You can get nicotine through alternate means of maybe a nicotine patch or nicotine gum. So you don't have to smoke cigars if you don't want to, but I would like to see more women on the side of that coin getting some nicotine as well, because it has other health benefits besides just helping protect the nicotinoid receptors all throughout our brains. And they'll say that the cigars, or cigarettes is what they really mean to talk about, not cigars, but they'll say, you know, smoking will impact your cardiovascular system. Well, that's simply untrue as well. Assuming we're talking just about cigars, not cigarettes. Sure, cigarettes, yeah, will definitely impact, but cigars will not impact your cardiovascular whatsoever, your respiratory. I smoke a cigar every day, really enjoy them, and I still am very active. Workout, jiu-jitsu, wish I could surf, but don't have that access yet. And I do just fine rolling jiu-jitsu. I fare much better than most that I roll with as far as cardio goes, and I should be worse off because I'm smoking a cigar, but it's not the case. There's no correlation with that whatsoever. So that's nothing to be worried about of it hurting your cardio. You can still smoke a cigar whenever you want, once a day, whatever, and have no issues with your cardio. If you do have cardio issues, that's completely in your mind. It's placebo. You believe that system, so therefore it becomes true. But I don't abide to that silly system, just like I don't abide to many of these silly systems. But I think it's also imperative that men take back something like this, because even though while I just previously said women should get into this, into smoking cigars and get more nicotine into their life as well, because it's not big on their side, but I think this is also a manly thing that should be, you know, our world right now is heavily feminized and becoming more and more feminized every day, with this divine feminine coming in that's going to counterbalance all the masculine, right? And it's going to take it to the extreme. So I think this is an important one to take back, right? To not fall to this woke side. You know, it's not the giant things, it's these little small things that add up every day, and this is one of them. It is a healthy masculine thing to do, and women can do masculine things as well. Maybe it is just solely a masculine thing, and that's why women don't prefer it as much, but they can still do masculine things just as men can still do feminine things. But obviously right now there's just an overload of feminine, and I think that it is important to maybe put a priority on some smaller things that have kind of fallen by the wayside due to time, and how our society has molded it or become nowadays. And lastly, on the topic of the big V's, right? Before the 1970s, we didn't have any cases of autism. What did they start taking immensely in the 1960s, 1970s especially? Big V's. And then if you even go further back, because it's hard to have accurate truth once we start getting a little too far back, because history is always told by the victors. The Spanish flu, right? Supposedly millions died from this horrible outbreak. But if you look into nurse reports of what they were dealing with at the time, you will start to dig and find that a lot of these nurses were administering V's, big V's, to the soldiers. And that's more than likely that what led to these horrible deaths. Not so much the Spanish flu, but the massive, once again, administering of big V's. You can believe that they've helped us get rid of things like polio and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, those didn't exist until we had the big V's. Oh, we dealt with this hundreds of years ago. We don't know that for certain. We don't. Our history is warping all of the time, being edited all the time. What we can be certain of now, is the most immediate history that we've gone through. And with the big C, we've seen how bad V's can be. And I hate having to use C and V, but it is what it is. And okay, you'll say that's just one. Okay, then you point to the autism one. That's another. You start seeing, you dig a little bit deeper, you find the Spanish flu one, and you can dig even more deeply and find even more that are recent. And it's hard, it starts to paint this picture that is really inconsistent, because time and time again there's a lot of issues that are coming from the big V's. So it's hard to believe any of them were necessary in the first place. And sure, paint me as an anti-V. That's fine. I'm perfectly fine, because there's nothing holistic whatsoever about V's whatsoever. You should, that is the furthest thing from nature, and you wouldn't have these problems that crop up in the first place if we were more in tune with nature, thereby more in tune with ourselves, with our insides, and more worried about that. It would reflect outwards. But we're not. Shocker. 1920s, 1930s, Rockefeller takes over medicine, kicks out holistic, makes a mockery of it, makes it seem silly and stupid, which it wasn't. It was practiced for thousands of years, and then suddenly it's now stupid and silly, and we're too smart for that. I think we're the dumbest we've ever been. The dumbest we've ever been. The most decline of man we've ever had, of intellect. We believe that we're smart. We believe in all these systems because we put in place these scientific entities that are beings that we believe are smarter than us, because they went through this period of time of schooling where they paid, and that it's such a silly game that these people can be smarter than you, and that's complexity, of this high level of complexity that we can't comprehend. No, nature is simple and everything is fractal, so therefore everything is simple. It's not to detract from the amazingness of everything, but it is designed to be simple. It is not to be overcomplexified, not to be seen as all of this crazy math that you have to go to school, pay to go to a school to learn how to do. No. It's not like that whatsoever. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Sure, it may apply to these scenarios, these foundationals that we've built up to work in, but they're still playing by a different game. They're playing different rules, and they're working on a single relational task, and therefore it applies to it. It's not the same. We're not talking about a holistic whole principle here. And people are not smarter than other people in those regards. And they're worrying about, sure, people argue, oh, you think all the scientists are in on it? No, of course not. In on it. In on what? Don't be silly. Don't condescend, okay? They are foundationally mistaught, just as I was foundationally mistaught. People think, I would like to argue that I was born on the other side. No, we were all raised the exact same way. And then once you start finding so many inconsistencies, you're like, hold up, I think I'm gonna maybe flip sides, because everything I see you guys all talking about, I know that too. And there's just not a lot of congruence here, and that doesn't make much sense to me. I'm gonna go not with the side of science, which is a belief system, just like religion. They are both beliefs. Whatever you believe, you make it true. This is how people die of starvation. Completely jumping here, but dying of starvation, yes, completely possible of happening. But on the flip side, fasting, also very plausible and possible of doing as well. When you believe that you need protein, you need these things, especially when you get into macronutrients and micronutrients, that you need these to survive, then when you believe that and you go without, then you can very well die of starvation. But whenever you don't believe that you need that, whenever you free yourself of those constraints, then crazy things that would seem impossible therefore become possible, and then you get into the realm of miracles. I mean, the only tattoo I have right here, only those who attempt the absurd can achieve the impossible. I never wanted to get another tattoo. I've never felt the need to. I think I could never figure out an image that I would think that would look well as on my body that I wanted anyway. But these words has been like a motto of mine for close to a decade now, probably more than that. And it's something that I think rings true forever. The stuff that people consider crazy, consider impossible in today's world, are things that were plausible and possible in the past. Why would they not be possible again? Well, they are, and they're going to be. And that's what makes this the most exciting time to be alive. All this fear, this doubt of these wars, all this stuff, junk, garbage, solar flares, the 2024 height of the solar maximum right now, blackouts, all feardom. All feardom. I was just watching Tomorrowland, and at the end of Tomorrowland on Disney, it's the orb, basically, which you could also be seen as like a phone. It's the same thing, right? An orb. You're looking into through a device, not a device, but I mean like the screen itself. Witchcraft. And it was predicting a terrible future of cataclysm, but it hadn't happened yet. It was a possible reality, and what was fueling it was the scare, the fear that it was making in people, that it was having and causing in people, and they were therefore fueling that reality to come true. And that's what's going on right now. They're trying to fuel us with this fear. There's nothing to be fearful of. This is the most exciting time to be alive ever. That is why we chose to be born now. So, I know I jumped off on a tangent, but there's nothing to worry about. So relax, smoke a cigar. It's healthy for you, and enjoy life, because there's so much to be excited for, and it's just getting better and better every single day. That's it.